first job is a VW transporter, which has broken down on the motorway, got recovered back to his house by the AA last night, and suspected timing belt. So we're going to go have a look now, see what's up with it, and see if we can get it back on the road. Okay, so the RAC have actually, or the AA, whichever one it was, has left the covers and all off for me, makes it nice and easy. But as you can see here, the teeth on the belt have actually sheared off for quite a way down here. So what we're going to do now is just get a ratchet on the bottom pulley on the crankshaft, make sure the engine turns. If the engine does turn, I'm going to whip the rocker cover off here and check to see if any valves are bent. If no valves are bent, it might be like the push rods or the camshaft brackets have snapped, which usually happens, and we might be able to save it. But if the engine doesn't turn or the valves are bent, it's going to have to be a strip down. So the quick easy way to check it is we take the rocker cover off after we've checked that the engine does actually turn over, and go from there. So the good news is the engine does turn, so I'm hoping the injectors come out nice and easily. If they do, then it'll be a nice straightforward job to take the actual rocker cover off. So first things first is take the injector pipes off, which look all rusty, and then we'll whip the injector brackets out and hope that the injectors do move, because that'll be the trickiest part. Okay, so the injectors actually come out really easy. We've got the rocker cover off now, and as you can see, I'll just get my tool. The actual rocker arms have snapped, so here's one part. I'm just going to pull out all the bits that I can now. Here's the other half of it. I'm hoping that there's not much iron filings gone into the actual engine. The only thing is, there's only a few of them that have snapped. So I'm going to whip all these out. I'm going to take the cams out, make sure none of the valves are bent. And if none of the valves are bent, I'll be putting some new rockers in, new hydraulic lifters, change the oil, just check the cam. Oh dear, that cam's picked up there. So it's going to need some cams. But we'll price up, see what the difference is for repair or replace the engine, and we'll go from there. So I'm just going to crack on. I'll whip the cams off, have another look, and then I'll update you then. So bit of an update, I've got 3 rockers broke. My concern is this roller bearing here is actually missing the inside and all the pins, so they are somewhere in the engine. It needs a camshaft anyway, because it's picked up on this end camlet. I'm going to continue to take the cams out, see if I can find all the bits. If I can find all the bits, then it's still probably worth repairing this engine. So yeah, so I'll crack on and take the cams out now. Okay, so we've got the cams out. Now there is still a bit of metal in there somewhere which I need to fish out, but I'm just checking the valves now just by using a hammer and just pushing down on them. And they do all move nice and freely. So indicating that none of the valves are actually bent. They're all sat about the same height as well. So I think we're going to be lucky on this one, and we can change the camshaft, the hydraulic lifters and rocker arms, and then new timing belt obviously, and put it all back together and see how we go. Okay, so a bit of an update. I've took the front grille off, took the radiator and the intercooler off. just so I got better access for when I'm timing it up. So now you can see I've got it all. Just taking this bottom cover off now, so I thought I'd pull it off and show you how many teeth come out. Oh. So there's all the teeth at the bottom of that. These are all the teeth that sheared off. And then the belt. So as you can see, sheared it. So this engine probably stopped pretty quick by the looks of this. Sheared those teeth off, and that's it. So we didn't even wrap the belt up. Okay, so that's all the timing belt and all off now. One thing to note though, on the fuel pump needs to be timed on these. You see this little indent in here. That needs to be lined up with this hole up here. So that needs to turn all the way around to there. So you've got that timed up. Now the camshaft, it's out now, but there's a hole there that you line up. You put a pin through the camshaft sprocket and a hole lines up there. Down here, there's a tool that fits in here and lines up your top dead center. So there's the top dead center marking there, and then on the tool it'll have another marking where it needs to line up to. But as I've stripped it down, I just put it to my best guess top dead center just by putting a screwdriver down the actual injector hole and just turning it into a hit top dead center. So that is pretty much top dead center anyway. We're going to change the water pump while we've got it all off because bearings fail on them and all sorts. So while we've got it off, we'll change the water pump as well. So I'm going to crack on with that now, and then we'll get putting it back together. So I'm putting back together, I put the new bearings on, the new rollers, I've put the new water pump in. Now I've come to the actual tensioner for the timing belt. Now the old tensioner actually has a locating pin which fits in here. Now if you're changing it for a Gates tensioner, now these, they do not have the locating things. So you will assume that it's the wrong part, because when you pull it on, you can't actually locate it. There's nothing for it to locate on, it just spins round the bolt. But that's completely normal. It's what Gates have done differently, whereas this one, it locates in there and then it doesn't move. But as soon as you tighten this up, it's not going anywhere. And the tightening torque for it is 20 Newton meters plus 45 degrees. So yeah, and this is part number T43219. So if any of you do get stuck doing it and you've got the old one out, because I always compare them, and the first thing I thought, right, it hasn't got a locating pin, but I've been onto Gates and they've actually said that you don't have a locating pin on it, you just put it on and do the tightening torques to 20 Newton meters and 45 degrees. So crack on now, I'll put that one on just loosely for now, then I'll get all the cams back in and time it all up. Okay, so now it's time to put the camshaft back on. So all I need to do is oil up all of these carriers here. I've got the hydraulic lifters out, I'm replacing them to be on the safe side. So I've got them soaking up in some oil. They do come already primed, but I'm just doing it just to make sure. All the old ones out, so now it's time to put them back in. And then we've got new rocker arms, because as you've seen, most of them broke. And then we've got a nice new shiny camshaft, and then we're using the old the right hand side camshaft because I've inspected it and it doesn't look that bad, whereas on this camshaft you can actually see it's picked up on that lobe there. Focus it, which is quite bad. Now the tricky part, the left hand side camshaft, will be easy to time up, because you put the sprocket on the front, and then you've got a locating pin that you can locate it in. Now the right hand side camshaft doesn't have that, so what I found, on the back there's a lug where this vacuum pump fits into. If you line it up parallel to the top of the actual head, then that's timed up. And also you could do that upside down, so always make sure that on the actual camshaft there's a sort of groove cut out where you can access the head bolts. So make sure the grooves are on the right side, because if it's upside down the grooves are going to be over this side, and that'll be no good. But I'm going to put the hydraulic lifters in, put the rocker arms in, put the cams in, and then I'll show you how to actually time it up. So just again, oiling up the rocker arms just to get some oil in the bearings. Then all they do is click onto the hydraulic lifter and then place over the top of the valve. You should be able to hear it click as well, to be clear. So ready, that's click done. Now with the hydraulic lifters, they're all the same part number, so you can put them on the exhaust valves and you can put them on the inlet valves, so it doesn't matter. Same again, oil these ones up. Now you want to make sure that you get some oil on all the seats where the cams are going to be sat, on top of the bearings and in the seats. So I have done some of the end ones, so they're not too bad. You just want to make sure that they're all oiled. So now we want to be fitting the camshaft. On the back of the camshaft you see the lurk here, so that sits flush with the back of the head by here. With these and the notches I was talking about earlier, make sure that they're in line so the head bolts can come out. So somewhere like that. And that lines up nicely at the back there. And as you can see, it's already, it'll leave the first cylinder top dead center on the rock, and then that's when we know that it's actually timed up. So I'll get the second camshaft now. Now with this camshaft, I'm going to have to put the sprocket on the front, put the timing pin in, so we can actually check and make sure it's all done correctly. If that's all good, then we can put the cam carrier on and tighten it all down. So here is the sprocket, and it is keyed, so it can only go on one way. Then here's the pin, to put the locating pin in. I'll show you in a minute when I which that fits straight in there, so that's actually looking pretty good. Might be a tuck out at the back, so I'm just going to pop it up. Change it one. No, so that's miles out. So that's more like it there. So that looks good. So now that's all located up nicely. You can see that the notches in the camshafts are making a nice little passage to get onto the head bolts, both sides. So when I noticed that this one was slightly over, and when I checked here, that was why. So at the back of there as well, that notch is lined up perfectly with the top of the head. So I don't know if I could get in there. I don't know, but hopefully you can see that was alright. So now the next step is to lubricate the cams, and then I'll be putting the cam cradle back on them. So now I'm going to put the cradle on. It's actually, it's not got a gasket in it, it's just gasket sealant. So I'm just going to run around the edge now with some gasket sealant. And there we have it. Did go down a lot easier than I thought. So put all the bolts in now and slowly tighten it down. So I'm literally just going to work my way from the middle out. All looking good. Time to put the timing belt on, and then we'll turn it over by hand, see if it's all timed up. Okay, so we've now got the timing belt on. It's not too bad to get the timing belt on these. Obviously you've got the locating pin here, so if you look in the hole there, you can see it lines up with the hole in the block, so that then just goes in. And you've also got one for the fuel pump, so this pin here lines up at the back there, and you just pop the pin in and that lines up. And the same with the crank, you've got one here. It's not going to come out, but underneath you can see you've got the mark on the pulley there, and you've got the arrow on the actual timing bracket, and that lines all that up. New water pump, all new pulleys. Probably going to have to change the eyes of the tension of the pulley for the fan belt as well, because that's a bit noisy. Yeah, so when you time these up, you want to slacken these three off, and the same with the fuel pump, and then you want to tighten your tensioner up so it's in the middle of the teeth there. It's slightly over there, but it's not too bad, it's still within the lines. And then you tighten these back up. What that does, it allows that pulley to move a little bit, and allows that pulley to move a little bit, so the belt actually tensions all the way around and not just this bit here. So yeah, so we're going to take the pins out now, and we'll turn it over by hand, and then we'll check it all back up, make sure it's all lined back up again, and then rebuild it and see if it starts. Okay, so it's the next day now, but last night I managed to get all the timing covers on, the one pulley on, got the rocker on, the injectors in, the injection rail back on, the vacuum pump back on at the back as well. So today I'm literally just rebuilding all the front end, and bleed all the system up, bleed the coolant up, bleed the injectors, and then we're going to see if it runs. Okay, so it's time to start it now, so let's see if it goes. Not quite enough battery power in it. Like I said, I haven't bled the injectors, so I need to bleed them through. But it's a bit tricky without the battery actually at full power. So give it a couple more seconds now and we'll go again.
goes! The guy. I thought it'd be...
Okay, so after that we bled it all up, we took it for a road test and it sounded nice. Today I got him to drive it to work and back just so it would get the oil circulating, to pull any sort of iron filings or any bits of metal down to the sump again. Today we've just come back and changed the oil and filter again. It's a good job that we did as well, because I did pull out some little needle bearings from in the sump, and the oil filter did have quite a bit of iron filings on there from where it broke up the last rocker arms. So all in all, a good job. Wasn't actually that difficult to do. The only specialist tools that I used was the timing tool kit, which you could buy off, I think we got it off Amazon for next day delivery, £20, so you can't really fault that. But yeah, stay tuned and I'll do some more videos like this.